So my name is Cal and I'm building a startup completely from scratch. The idea? A dating app where you actually talk. That's about all I can reveal for now though. My goal is to document every single line of code written from start to finish, the successes and the struggles, as authentically as possible. I wish the people that built Tinder had a series like this, and my hope is that one day my app will become an actual competitor to Tinder. So thank you so much for clicking on this video, and I hope you enjoy it. It's early morning. I've decided that today I'm gonna try to set the computer up so that's actually a little bit higher up, because I feel like when I watch back every single video, I'm sitting like a freaking the hunchback of Notre Dame. The thing is, I have two screens there, which I could connect my laptop to, but I don't really like it. I like it for the stationary PC, but I like the idea of being able to move around and sit in the living room if I want to. If I use that, then I can't sit wherever I want. So I think a little laptop stand would be nice, but today I don't really have one. But I have lots of books, as you can see. Power Moves book, Paul Stamets' Fantastic Fungi, The Art of the Batman, and then we have the Lord of the Rings sketchbook by Alan Lee. Okay, I think we need it a little bit higher still. The Sailor's Book of Small Cruising Sailboats. And this is the Frank Frazetta sketchbook. I love this sketch because it's so simple. I like the idea when artists do like the fewest lines possible or the least amount of detail possible, but still manage to get something that's so like telling what they're actually drawing. So some people can do that very well, and Frank Frazetta was one of them. Enough with that. Now we have a setup, I think. Then we need a keyboard and a mouse. And then we're gonna get to the actual coding, which is gonna be, this is gonna be a backend day. We're going to actually work on the lambda server side of the AWS server. And we're gonna set up a lambda function, which I've never done before. Create an algorithm, just a basic algorithm to test out like, how does it work? Can I create an algorithm on the server that I can then retrieve stuff from into the app, the front end? That's going to be a task for today. There's a high chance or high possibility that this will be a lot more difficult than I think it should be, but we'll see. Okay, so I'm just going to follow this tutorial, this official one, instead of using ChatGPT this time. I'm going to follow it to the dot so that hopefully we can understand it. I think we're going to use Python because I know Python a little bit. Okay, so I think I actually did it now. We have a function that works, which is great. This function basically just gets all the users, which will be part of the algorithm, I think. I'm not sure what the best way to do things are, but one way is basically have one function that just gets all the users. And then we have another function somewhere else that, that uses that function. This function is the matching algorithm, and that asks for, first we need to get all the users, so that gets all the users to this function, and then inside that function we use all the user IDs to actually figure out the logic behind who we should match with who. Yeah, so that's the first step, is just get all of the users, and then once we can do that, we can move on to the next thing. Now we actually have that function. So the next thing is to create the matching algorithm, I think. Now this matching algorithm will be based on distance, so we need to know whereabouts they are. Now the question is, should the get function for get all the users, should that be where we filter out by location? Okay, so this is not going to be optimal. I guess I have to understand that, but I would like to make it as good as it could be. So what I'm thinking is like, where should the logic happen? Let's say that you have 1 million users. You don't want to get all of the users unless you actually have to. Let's say that we have some users in America, some users in Switzerland. Let's say that the calls are going to be based on who's closest to you. Then it doesn't really make sense for the people in Switzerland or for the server essentially to list all of the users that exist. It actually makes more sense to just list the users in Switzerland for those guys if they are doing calls. And in America, it just makes sense to list the users there for them. So the question is, where does that logic happen? Does that logic happen, like, do we get all of the users first and then filter it out? Or do we send a parameter into this function as well, which is like, get all the users with this location? I don't really know. Okay, but I'm pretty happy about this though. Like, we actually have a function that works. I mean, this is exciting to me. Like, I've done things like this before, but I haven't done it properly. Like, this is properly done. Like, we're using lambda, which is like a real thing. And we're doing like backend logic stuff that I feel pretty good about this. I feel like I can actually accomplish building this app on my own, which I've been very like back and forth about that for this entire build. Just not knowing, can I actually complete this on my own or do I need help for it? Right now, it actually seems like I don't need help. I think I could do this. So I'm gonna ask ChatGPT, because I think this is one of those questions that's actually pretty good for ChatGPT. Where should the logic happen? I think this is something that ChatGPT kind of understands, but I don't. Okay, so I think that this is something that I have to think about properly, like actually sit down and try to figure out what is the logic going to be like. Let's say I launch the app and there's only like 5 users. Then maybe I don't want to limit it to a certain distance, because then if the distance is limited, then some people might not get to talk. So it should be something where it will start out trying to get people as close together as possible. But then if the max amount of matches for that call isn't reached within the distance, then it will expand the distance and it will look for people there, and then it will expand the distance and look for people there, and it will keep going until it finds someone, or if there's no one else out there, then there's no one else out there. Yeah, there's a lot of things that it needs to take care of. And I'm not fully up to speed with what needs to be done. I need to sit down and just think about this for a bit. But now I'm gonna run some errands. I have just been shopping a little bit and getting my girlfriend a Valentine's Day gift, which I can't show you, unfortunately, just in case she might watch this video. Either way, I feel really good about today because I got to work in the morning, even though I knew I had to leave at like 9:30, which means that now I've actually done 1.5 hours of work. The typical thing that I would do in those cases is like think that, well, there's not enough time for me to really get started on the video and coding. There's no use trying to get into it because I won't have enough time to actually fully dive into it. And so what I would typically do would be to maybe make breakfast and just have a slow morning until 10 and then go do my errand. And I would come back at 11 and wouldn't have done any work. I'd feel like, okay, now I really need to get to work. And I think I generally think that things will take a little bit longer than they do. This morning, for instance, I got a full 1 hour and 30 minute session of coding in, which is quite a lot to get done. I think in my head, I sort of built it up to be like, well, I won't even be able to do 30 minutes of this because I have to do all these other things. And so I don't actually get to work when I actually have 2 hours of time available. And I think it's because I overestimate sometimes how much time it takes to set up the camera, set up the microphone, I don't know, open up the computer. Subconsciously, I think I don't have enough time when I actually do have time. If you have something similar to this, like where you tend to underestimate what you can get done, then I really want to urge you to like just try to do something in the time that you have and see how far you get, because most likely you'll actually get a lot further than you thought. We're gonna do another hour of this. Okay, so I have to think through the way that it's going to work. Right, Right, I think there's a lot of work that has to be done here. For the user info, like we don't have anything in the database other than an email and the user ID. So there really isn't anything else. I don't even know if we have a proper database or if it's just like a user database. I don't know if there's a difference or what we have, but we need to make sure that we have a database that can contain name, age, gender preference. So this is like, it's gonna be a dating app. I'm gonna reveal that much. It's gonna be a dating app, so we need a gender preference. Then we need to have an age preference, a location, and radius. And then we need to have pictures, we need to have a profile picture, we need to have a list of matches, list of likes, and list of dislikes. Likes are people that you've liked but haven't matched with yet, and dislikes are people that you've disliked and you don't want to match with. And all of these things have to be taken into account, I think, when we do the matching algorithm, because we can't just take one guy, one girl, match them together. It has to be according to age preference, and gender preference, and it also has to be within the radius. It has to not be someone that you've already disliked but haven't matched with, and it can't be one of your existing matches. So there's a lot of things that need to be taken into account, and all of these things that need to be taken into account need to be created, I think, before we can start doing the algorithm. I think it's good that we've created one way to get users at least, so we know how to do that. Now, I don't know how to handle that stuff, because what ChatGPT suggested was create a function called something like get proximal users, and then we take the user ID of the person that needs to get these users, the location of that user and the radius, blah, blah, blah. But the question is, maybe the matching, all the matching should take place on the server. The server has all of the users and it's not a specific user, so it has all of the users and it needs to be basically sorting through all of these users and sorting them into different buckets of matches. I'm kind of curious as to like how something like Tinder started out, because at the start there wouldn't have been that many people on the app, which means that location would have been an issue, because if there are only 5 people in the app and they are located in, one is in Nebraska and one is in California, I think those two places are far apart, then it wouldn't really make sense for them to match in the app as it looks today. But as it would have looked back then when there was only 5 users, then maybe it doesn't make sense to keep them apart, because then you just limit the amount of people that you would be able to match with. I don't really know how they would deal with that, to be honest. It's also not great for an app to match people that are way too far apart, because then it's like, well, yeah, it's fun that we matched, but we can't really meet or do anything because we're too far apart. So it does have to have some sort of location thing. The other option that I have in my head is it's going to be an event where you basically join a call and you get to talk to random people of the gender that you want to talk to. You have 1 hour with 5-minute conversations per person. And then after each conversation, you get 1 minute to see pictures of that person that you just talked to. And you can decide whether you want to match or whether you want to like that person or not. And then you move on to the next conversation. You get 5 minutes with that person and you do that for 1 hour. And that's going to be like an event. And the idea with the event is that you can market an event. So I could do like Instagram ads for that as like an event here where I live. I don't know, I think that's a pretty good idea. And that could also solve the issue of the location thing, because if you do an event that's just like, well, this event is just in this city, then people kind of have to be from the city to sign up for the event, which limits in some ways, but it also maybe increases the potential of the event actually going well, because people will be close to each other. I don't know, maybe I'll do a video where I just explain what the actual idea of the app is. I'm just hesitant because I feel like I'm not the fastest at building this. If I say the idea, then maybe someone else will just build it in like a week and beat me to it, which is possible. I think it's very possible actually. But yeah, I think we need to get understanding of like, how do you add stuff to the database to begin with? Do we even have that set up, or do we need to set something up for it? I updated the lambda function, so now we're getting 2 users. So we do get 2 users from the new database, and the new database is on our Amplify backend, so that seems to work. The only thing that didn't work was the hello table. Okay, maybe it did work, actually. Either way, now I guess we can just get to creating a table for a user with all the information that we want a user to have. And then we can use that information to create an algorithm that we can then use to match users. But that's going to be it for today. Okay, so I think what I'm going to start with is I want to start with the list of likes, because that's going to be very similar to what they have in the example app, which is just a list of to-dos. But instead of all this stuff, we're going to have user IDs as the list. I want to test something. So I want to test copying this whole page, sending it to ChatGPT, and then seeing if ChatGPT can write the code that I need in order to be able to create a new or a list for a user with user IDs. Right, I think maybe it did a good job. So it basically created this, which is a user model with all of this stuff. This isn't really that difficult. By writing into ChatGPT, I don't have to do it myself. But I'm not really sure, like profile picture, for instance, is a string, and pictures, so pictures of the user, is a list of strings. And the way that ChatGPT assumed that this would work is that you have pictures basically point to URLs for each picture that we upload. Not sure how to do that in AWS or how they do it, how they deal with it. Maybe it's something where we have to have a page where we upload a picture, and that picture gets uploaded to AWS, and then we get back a URL, and then we can store that URL in our user model. That might be the way, or there's some other way that they do it. But I think this is like good enough for now. And then it also created a testing functionality. So we have, for simplicity, this example creates a user when you tap the floating action button. So basically just created a floating action button that you press, and when you press that button, it creates a user and it uploads it or stores it in the database. And here is the method that creates the user, which is also really good because this is stuff that I would have had to write, which isn't like it. This really is not difficult to write. It's just repetitive and boring. So it's a good thing that ChatGPT can do it. So now the question is, does this work? So we'll copy it. I think we can just copy it and replace. Okay, so I've been struggling with this a little bit. ChatGPT creates this whole thing that you can see here. So basically it creates a model here called user like. So that's a model where we have a user like that has an ID that identifies the actual entry in the database. And then in that user like, we have the ID of the user that did the liking, and then we have the ID of the user that was liked, and that is one model. But then it's decided to create this belongs to relationship, so belongs to user. So the user ID of the user that has done the liking belongs to this model, which as I'm looking now, I don't really know if that's something that works in Amplify, or if that is even how you do it. I think what we actually want is just an array of strings. Essentially, instead of having this whole thing here where we have, instead of that, we could just have a likes, and that's just a list of strings. And as soon as you like someone, you create a new entry in the database that gets a new ID, and that connects it to the blah, blah, blah. But then once you've liked someone, you retrieve that, the ID of the like, and then you add it into a list of strings here. I feel like sometimes these things with code is just so difficult to explain in a way that's clear and understandable. But maybe that makes sense. Either way, I think I can show you, and maybe then it will make sense. Okay, we only have 30 minutes now to get this done. I think I'm on my way. I'm really struggling with the relationships in the database, just trying to set that all up. Okay, I think I've solved it now. So What we're going to have is we're going to have user likes is what we're going to call it. And this is going to be all the likes that the user has. This then is a list that contains the ID of the actual user. So we know this is my likes, let's say. And then we have a list of all the users that I've liked. And this list of liked users is a has many relationship with the user model, and it references the user ID. And I think that solved our problem. We do want to change this to be S. Okay, I think it worked. Yeah, I think it actually worked. Finally. All right, now we actually have this in the database. So we can create a user if we press create user, and we can add the name, age, gender preference, age preference, we can add that, location, radius, pictures, profile picture, likes, blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff we can add. And we also have user likes, user dislike, user matches. Okay, so that's really good. And I'm gonna call it a day there. We achieved what we wanted. Now tomorrow, what are we gonna do in the next video? Just adding one user, maybe two users into the database so that we can then work on the algorithm for the app with two actual users in there. But I'm pretty happy. It's almost like my catchphrase at this point. I'm pretty happy, but I am really happy with this. All right, it's 11 a.m. and we're not messing about today. We're just gonna start. Yesterday we got most of the database, I think, set up. We have likes, we have dislikes, we have matches, we have profile picture, all those sort of things is set up. So this is done. I would like to add some sort of like nice symbol saying that this is done, but I don't really know how to do that. So we're gonna do this X for things that are done. Oh yeah, that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna go to amplify, and then we're gonna create a user. Gender, man, woman, let's just say 20 to 31. Location, radius, 100. So it's matched by required. That's not supposed to be required. All right, I just tried to create a user using a button basically that I've created. That will be this thing. So we'll basically just create a test user, 25 male, blah, blah, blah. Now we'll make a female. But we'll sign out, and then we'll sign in using a different email. Okay, and then we'll see if we actually have a new user or new users. Authentication. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to call it a day here. I've been trying to get this to work. Just trying to be able to add a user into here with all the different information that we wanna be able to have. But it seems like when you sign in, you create a user, and that user gets a user ID. It creates a user, but it doesn't create a user in the data thing, so it doesn't create a user here. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a user on the client side using the already existing user ID for the user that has been created, if that makes sense. So I'm basically getting the user ID, and then on the client side here, adding the user ID into the user model and adding the name, adding all the stuff that we want. And then I'm creating that user in the database. But I think what's happening, maybe, well, right now what's happening is that there's some sort of authorization error, so we're not authorized to do it. But I think there might also be an error, which is that since the user ID already exists, we can't create a new user in the database that has the existing user ID. I don't know. I don't really know how this works or why it doesn't work, but it doesn't seem to work. So I'm not sure if this just like some sort of authorization issue, or if there is the issue, which could also be an authorization issue, which is that we're not authorized to change a user ID. I don't know. I don't really know what's happening. But I seem to not be able to get this to work today. And we've done about 3.5 hours of this now. So we're gonna come back another day, hopefully get it to work. But thank you for watching this video, and I hope I'll see you in the next one.